Hi there and welcome. My name is Tina, and in today's video, we are going to talk about Layne Staley and Mike Starr. They are two previous members of Alice in Chains, a really great rock band, and they had a lot of addiction issues and things that they struggled with that a lot of rock stars do. And so today we're going to talk about their relationship from a soul contract perspective. So we're going to talk about the relationship. We're going to talk about were they friends or frenemies, and whether they really had demons. We talk about the demons within and what does that mean and how can we look at that from a soul perspective. We're going to also look at yin and yang, balancing our female and masculine side, because that's very important to know when we are out of balance. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to pull some cards and get some messages directly from Layne and Mike that they would like to share with you. So hang tight because this will be a little bit of a wild ride we're taking. And the first thing I do want to say is as far as celebrities or famous people, we don't put them on pedestals, nor do we judge them and their life, as well, because we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. And so we need to look at them through the eyes of empathy and compassion because we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and we're all here trying to learn and grow from our experiences. And so we want to keep that in mind that, we can learn a lot from them because of the fact that they are famous and we know so much about them. So then when we look at their soul contracts, we can learn a lot from the numbers and what people are struggling with. So without further ado, let's grab their contract and take a quick look at it. So here, I just kind of wanted to lay out, let's let the energy kind of hit you in the face and don't anybody spaz out about the all the numbers because it's basically we're going to be looking at this side of the chart over here, which is basically the same. I like to put down what's the actual Merkaba with their information on here because again, it is reflective of their actual energy. So we want to lay it out in that particular Star of David way. And if you haven't watched my intro to the soul contract to understand how I put the charts together and the history and the background, I always put a link to that introductory video in the description box. But all of our soul contracts are based on our birth name. So I know Layne, no one has to point that out. I know that he changed his name. He did not like Rutherford, and he had told me from the other side he still doesn't like that name. So he had changed his name to Thomas after Tommy Lee from Guns N' Roses, who was somewhat of his idol, somebody he aspired to be like. And he did take on a lot of that energy from Thomas, but really, we want to look at our birth name, what's on our birth certificate, because that's really what pulls in a lot of our experiences. Now, when we change our name, it does add another layer. So we call your birth name the cake of your life. And then if you have any name changes, those are the icing on the cake. So they add another layer. And of course, these guys didn't go by their full names. They went by Layne Staley and they went by Mike Starr. And so those, again, would add a lot of different energies as well. But we want to focus primarily on the birth chart because that's what drives your challenges. As you know, we all have a physical side. Our bodies are physical. We all come down here into these meat suits and that we have a very 3D experience, but we also still maintain our soul, which is our spiritual side. And these numbers can that are either physical or spiritual can bring forward positive and negative, depending on where we're at in our growth, because all of these incarnations are about us learning lessons and growing. It's not all about, who has the most money at the end wins. Like we can kind of get trapped in the matrix with striving for these achievements and things like that. But that's not how really it works. So what we want to look at is how did Layne and Mike interact together? Because when we come together, and especially if they were in, the band Alice in Chains, Layne being the lead singer, Mike being the original bassist, and they were just phenomenal musicians. So, they came together to kind of do this. I mean, these are soulmates, we would call them, because again, we can meet a lot of people in our life, and especially famous people, they'll meet a lot of people, but there will still be just very few people that are really in their inner circle. And the people that are the closest to you, like parents, there could be teachers that come into your life or, to help you on your way, and band members, they all come together. That's a soul contract agreement. And so they come in to support each other, to maybe add more learning experiences through karmic activities. That's more of that negative side. But again, it's all part of your learning lessons. It's all a part of growing and becoming more. And they'll come back again. They're doing just fine on the other side. So they don't want anybody crying over them or weeping or listening to their songs and crying. They're doing just fine. What they would like for you guys to know is to take those lessons that you can see that they were struggling with and take it to the next level. Because that did happen with several of their other bandmates who did finally do some healing and finally did reach a different level. And they still are going, they're still producing music. They have replaced Layne and Mike, and they're very happy about that. They want those guys. They love those guys. Those are their soul family, and they want them to continue to grow and learn and change, and make the most of what they have left here to do on this earth. So I did light a few candles for Layne. He's very much into that atmosphere. I know he was responsible for that when they did their um, Unplugged, MTV Unplugged. I watched that on YouTube, and that was really, really a great show. And Layne was the one responsible for the aesthetics and the lighting and the candles. That was kind of his idea. So he's bringing that through again. So he's still working it. And Mike is more of that very rough and tough. Kind of this bright light, but yet kind of has this rough edges to him as well. So we'll get more into that. But let's show you the first thing that we would look at in people that have a soul chart. And so you can see that what brought them together is they have a lot of similar energies. You can see they have, this 13-4. Layne was a dominant 9. I have done a full reading on Layne about all of his numbers. Please watch that if you're interested in learning more just about all of his numbers and how that all played together for him. But you can see that Mike also had 9s in his chart. And then they've got 7s here, these 4s here, and this 11-2 here. So they have a lot of numbers. And I've looked at the other bandmates, and it explains why they came together. Now, Jerry and Sean added more grounding, because these charts of Layne and Mike's, they're not very grounded energy. And so that's gives you a little bit of a flavor why maybe they struggled a little bit more, because you really want to be able to ground yourself here to be able to transmute a lot of the energy to be able to heal and grow. And both of these guys got a little stuck in these charts. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But again, this is what brought them together. They had a lot of similar energies and so the nines for them, nines being super powerful, the most powerful number. Now, Layne was very challenged by that because, again, nines in challenges can be super, super disempowering. And that, you can disempower yourself very much from these numbers. And that's what it's meant to do as well. You can't learn true power until you've been disempowered. So none of this is a punishment for anything. Karma, if you can think about it in this way, is just cause and effect. So again, if you are not treating your body very well, your body is going to suffer, and that's just the effect of everything that you're doing. It's not a punishment, it's the choices that you're making. And so Mike here had nines in his spiritual talents. They call them qualities, but I like to refer to them as the talents. So actually, Mike could be very good at, helping. He was encouraging Layne to reach for more, because what's nice about this is you see the numbers aren't in the same aspect. So that also tells us a lot that they could really learn from each other and grow from each other. They were struggling with a lot of the same things though. And then I'll show you why that is. Because when you pull in the negative side of these numbers, which they have a lot of the same numbers, you're going to see some of the same patterns cropping up. And so for them, they were here this 11 too. So that would have made Layne really good at putting structure to his music, to his singing, to the lyrics, and that's putting that structure in place. And so Mike might have been a little bit more challenged with that, with the structure aspect of it, wanting to maybe feel it out a little more, or not really, you know, he might had to have been shown, hey, this might work a little better. And then, oh, then he could put the structure to it. So again, it's just these little nuances where they could help each other out. These sevens here too are about learning how to work in a group. And for Mike now, that was his overall life purpose, was to learn how to work well within a group of people. And we know he struggled with that, because when something's your life purpose, you can really, it's a challenge to get there. It's not easy. So again, this is about giving up control. So both of these guys would have some control issues around how to do stuff, what works best. And so they're meant to come together and to create this unity. You can see these different links in the symbol here, but the more links you put together, the stronger something is. So it's about, again, like I said, being able to facilitate groups, but not control them. You have to let the flow of the group work. And then, like I said, the other members were bringing in more grounded energy, which would be very helpful to these good guys to really ground the energy, and they would feel more in their bodies and safer actually around those two guys. Where they both were struggling is in this number here, because the 13-4 is tied to the feminine. And we've got a couple of very masculine guys here who are in denial of the feminine. And they set that up that way. Mike more so than Layne would have been, because this is in his physical challenges. So what does this mean? So this is about, like I said, a feminine quality. So we all have masculine and a feminine side, yin and yang, yin being the feminine, yang being the masculine. And if you're too much in your masculine, you're denying the feminine. And the feminine is all about self-care and evading responsibilities and evading your deepest needs because it's about mothering and nurturing yourself and reparenting yourself. And so, what this also tells me is that this is also was set up that they would have this disconnect from the mother. It's really important for all of us to reconcile our issues with our parents. Because when you have this set up, okay, so you have this issue with the mother on for both of these guys in a little bit different ways. But what happens is if you don't reconcile that, if you don't do some healing and really get to understanding what that was all about, you create what's called the mother wound. And then you attract the feminine who also has the same wounding because you vibrate together to usually work out your trauma. So it's you attract to you basically what you are. And I know a lot of people don't, they're like, oh no, opposites attract. Well, it may be opposite male, female, but there's some similar wounding that usually attracts people. So you may be more toxic in your masculine side, and you may attract that feminine that's toxic on the feminine side. And again, that's not meant as a punishment. It's meant for you to start to wake up out of that, to start to work on yourself and become more whole so that you balance out that feminine and masculine. And then you start attracting people that are healthier, you become healthier. And so there was a lot of that going on with this evading your deepest needs and basically that's you were neglecting yourself. You're neglecting the self. Um, where what really went awry for Layne was the fact that he was a dominant nine. And when you have five or more nines in your chart, it's really hard on the physical body. In fact, you can basically ignore the body, which he did, right? He totally was destroying his body because there's this very unconscious feeling that you're going to be okay. You know you're a part of God. You know that you can't really die, but it's you can kill your body and then you have to leave the 3D world. You don't really die. Your soul can never be dead. But again, it's this illusion that you can do anything to your body and you'll be okay. So Mike would have a little bit of this, but for him, his issues come in this negative side of the fives, even though he has it in his physical talents, he was still pulling in this is very reckless behavior, he's very impatient, um, impulsive. And I call this the people pleasing. And for somebody who's very much too much yang or too much in their masculine, this is more about pleasing the bros, pleasing the guys, not pleasing like the women. You get your women who are more codependent towards the masculine, but this would be him developing almost a codependence. He would be trying to show you, I'm tough, I can do this, I can handle anything. And so they would he would just push it, really just keep pushing that envelope to try to gain this ooh and ah from his friends. And so that's where you have to be very careful because these aren't very supportive energies. So it wasn't like these guys, there was some loyalty there because again, they came into this band and they really, hit it big. They had some real good success. But what was really causing the issue here was this number, these fours that they have on the same aspect, which we would call a lock. And so the fours are all about your individual self-expression, but they can also be selfish. So again, it's really important for us to become centered in self, not to become self-centered. And so when you're too far, nobody completely balances their masculine and feminine, just so you know. It's you're kind of moving fluidity depending on your needs, So this though can be you really were to learn about sharing of yourself and giving and attracting abundance and learning your self-worth. And they did pretty good with attracting that physical abundance, money, but again there's some deeper issues going on. And so this number is also tied to trust issues. So they would have, there was some trust issues between the two of them. They did not really trust each other. And that's because of this number. So there could have been some jealousy between them, some, you know, because there was more going on than we are aware of with Mike getting kicked out of the band. And again, you saw the videos. There's like, oh, I just want to spend more time with, my family and that kind of stuff, which is the canned excuse, right? I knew right away. When I saw this chart, I was like, well, there was more going on. There was more going on. Um, the numbers in, we all have empaths and narcissism, right? And so we all move across a scale from empathic to malignant narcissism. And so that can be, we swing back and forth. So this isn't, I'm not diagnosing anybody or putting anybody down, but I would say Mike was struggling with this 13-4, which drives a lot of selfishness and self-indulgent behavior. 11-2s are also self-indulgent behaviors and this reckless behavior. Couple that with this 10-1, which is a very, when it's out of balance, is extreme toxic masculinity. And then you have the drama. I call these the drama queens, drama kings. So lots of drama around there. And like I said, and then you have he's going to be challenged with being able to work in a group. So there was a breakdown happening with him wanting to control, wanting to take the lead, wanting instead of allowing this band to work. And I think that was what was really pushing him out. I'm not picking on him in any way. This was driven by his numbers because these were lessons he was meant to learn from. And so you get kicked out of a band that was very successful, and he was carrying a lot of resentment. He may not have shown that, or he may not have talked about that. I do think I remember seeing something where he was blaming Jerry for being jealous. And that felt more like a projection than anything. And that's what happens too with if your narcissism starts to you get really entrained into that, then you can't take accountability. And you never really heard him take accountability for anything, which again, I I'm not picking on him. You really didn't hear Layne as well, really acknowledging the abuse that he was, because again, when you're not neglecting yourself, you are affecting others. Unfortunately, we are all part of the greater whole. You're affecting your bandmates, you're affecting your family. So when you are in this very selfish, self-centered mode, which fours in karma and fours in these goal aspects, these drive and goal aspects they can be very self-isolating because they push people away. And so I really felt that was going on more with Mike than it was for Layne, considering that Layne was going through a lot of addiction issues the band knew about and things like that as well. So when they were saying, well, Mike was kicked out for the addiction, I think it was more the reckless behavior, the not really working well as a team issues going on. He kind of had, and again, on the other side, they're fully aware of their shadows. And this is so important for us we all have a shadow side. And when we can't see that shadow, that's part of the problem. So the other issue we wanted to talk about was, remember I said they have this mother wound again with Layne. The mother wound stemmed from the fact that his mother was very religious and she kind of had a set way and set beliefs that she was projecting onto Layne that he knew was just BS. And again, that's a lot of that religious programming and things. And I'm not blaming the mothers. We're not, this is not what this is about, but we have to understand how our parents affected us. And both of these guys didn't just have the mother wound, they had the father wound. And that's very difficult. I had both as well. And it's really difficult to start looking at that shadow side because you stay in this victim mode. And nines have a tendency to stay in victim mode pretty easily. Poor me, everybody's out to get me. Uh, they have a hard time seeing those patterns from the parents that they can break out of those patterns. They don't have to be stuck in the patterns. So as I said, it wasn't just the mothers. We had severe issues from both the fathers. And for Layne, it was the abandonment issues when his father left them then came back only when Layne had money and was successful and then was doing drugs with Layne. And this is very similar to Mike. Although Mike lived with his dad when his parents split up, he went to live with his dad. And then it was this us against the women attitude, us against, all women bad, use them, abuse them, get what you can from them. But it kind of had this energy to it. And that's that very toxic yang energy where, you know, and they could have been bringing into their life with that energy, they would have been bringing in toxic females which would reinforce that belief as well. And the reason I say that too is I know I had seen an interview where somebody had talked about John Starr, who is Mike's dad, that had said about Demarco that Demarco was the one responsible for those guys being hooked on heroin, that it was all Demarco. And I had to kind of chuckle is because there is that, again, blaming the feminine for them choosing this path and she could have been the one who showed them, but again, it's not being accountable for your actions, not choosing to see that this is wrong, that this isn't right for you, and just blaming somebody else for it. Because we know that there was a lot going on with them, that this wasn't just tied to Demry. But I thought that was really interesting because it kind of tells me where, because again, Mike Starr, I couldn't really find a lot out about his dad, but that's the feeling and the energy that I was getting. And I would believe that there was also some mutual drug stuff going on as well. So this was stuff that Mike was basically programmed by his dad. So this is sometimes the parents, they use the child as an extension of themselves to get what they don't think that they can get. And so in some ways that benefited Mike. He started to believe he could be this rock star. He really was manifesting. And again, very strong-willed. They were really into their music, and that was a great thing. There isn't, again, this isn't all good or bad. It's about learning and growing. And nines are super, super creative, and 13 fours are, because the feminine is where a lot of the creativity comes from. So you think of the feminine as the Empress energy, that's the fertile ideas and allowing the growth to happen. It's all about allowing. It's more of um a calmer energy. So if a woman is not in that energy, she's probably more in her masculine energy. And the masculine energy is all about, you know, its will and courage and stability and its strength and structure. And so the two together is what makes beautiful music. And so these guys were very much could go with that yin and yang flow. It's just identifying where they were out of balance. And I could really I would have to agree with Jerry and some of the band that they were very much against Mike after Layne's death. And I haven't gotten to that last day part, but I'll get to that shortly here. Um, that they were really against Mike going on these rehab shows because it was exploitation. And I totally agree with that. That was, again, him needing money, him looking for attention because fours like need a lot of validation and a lot of attention. And he is looking to stay kind of in that victim mode again, remember? And you just to listen to him talk about, oh, I don't give a F anymore. And I don't really care what happens. And so that's when you are in your toxic masculine is you are shut down and you are just this rebel energy and everything's the F this and F that. And so that you could see that playing out very clearly that he was still in this very toxic masculine energy and he hadn't really done any healing, because this is what happens as things get worse and worse and worse, the more resistant you are to doing any healing work. And of course, that's not unusual for rock stars because they're very much this masculine and they don't want to seem really soft, but they miss the point because I think Jerry did some great healing with his own father when he wrote the song Rooster, and then his dad kind of came back in his life. And doing that is where the healing comes, the telling your story, starting to see your parents as the humans that they are, and why maybe what lessons you need to take from that. And so the last day that Mike Starr was the one that was the last one to see Layne because Layne had been holed up in his condo, uh, isolating himself. Again, playing out that 13-4, he was evading, basically playing video games, drugs, you know, he was in this very guilt, this was the mother wound was tied to guilt over Demry's passing. The again, that feminine. So this is a pattern playing out from the guilt that was projected onto him by his mother through all the religious programming, because that's the one thing about religion is it's tied to a lot of shame and guilt and blame, keeping people very small. And you have to be very careful because that's not what any ascended master is part of a religion, whether it is Allah, Jesus, Jeshua, or Jesus, Buddha, all of those, they were trying to empower people, not that opposite. Not they were not about control and rules and this very patriarchal energy. That was the balance of the two that they were trying to get across. So there's my little spiel on religion. But again, I feel there was this overwhelming sense of guilt that Layne was not ready to face. And that's again that shadow part of ourselves, looking at not, just taking accountability, but not taking the blame for another person's life because you aren't responsible unless you were the one, obviously, that killed them. So again, he was holed up in his condo, as most everyone knows, slowly killing himself through neglect and causing himself so much suffering. And so Mike had gone over there. It was Mike's birthday. And so that kind of gives you a clue. So there was this sense, and I had done some tarot cards and I pulled some readings and I'd asked some questions about, hey, what was the original purpose? Why did you go over to Layne's that day? And even though I don't know all of what came out, I didn't really look up everything Mike had said about that time but I felt very um I felt that he was being really pressured to, again, he still couldn't look at he had a lot of guilt himself, but he still was really struggling trying to make it look like he knows he should have done something, but he did, ask about, calling 911, and then Layne, had said he wouldn't talk to him anymore and those types of things. But really the initial reason he went there was it was really about money and the drugs. He was under the influence. He was on prescription drugs, which he ended up passing away from, which is, again, that's a deeper issue in our culture with how our medical services really work. And but not, and this is not about putting him down, because when people are drug addicts, and we're going to get to the demons next, they are operating from a really low consciousness energy. And we have to remember that we are all can be in that place. So we've had incarnations, we've all been the perpetrator, we've all been the victim. Once we start coming into our healing capabilities, we're starting to move the dial in a different direction, but it's everybody's here learning different things. So it's never about, oh, he shouldn't have done that or he should have done that. Everyone's responsible for their own life and their own manifestation. So we all have the power within us. So he did go over there. He had ulterior motives for going over there. He was shocked by Layne's appearance. I did get a sense that there was some shock at just how far Layne had deteriorated, and obviously he died the next day. So, um, but I didn't get that Mike was there when he died, because I know I didn't like this about, we had talked about he had gone to these rehab places, and then I had listened to one where an episode that they drew me to where Layne's mom I guess, had interviewed Mike on TV, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is the most awful thing. That these doctors were allowing this to go on to people who are really struggling and allow this kind of stuff. And I was not impressed by that. I wasn't impressed with, because again, that tells me that people are looking to blame. And I understand, like I said, Layne's mom, he has this great mother wound, but I never, in some of the things that I watched of her, she never talked, it's always just kind of skirting around issues. She doesn't look at anything about how Layne was raised and who she was and how that might have affected him. And so that's disappointing in some respects. I give her a lot of credit. She's trying to get out there to help others or to bring, again, attention to this. But we would get farther if people really started to talk about families and how we put these pressures on these kids coming in, and how that affects them, and how then, of course, they are meant to break out of the patterns, just like his mom was hopefully meant to, and that doesn't always work out. But I still think that it's something we should talk about, that all of us have a shadow, and his mom and dad, and what role that played in family counseling or healing. This religion's going to solve all your problems. That's more escapism. So that's not how it works. You just follow these rules and it will be all okay, right? But so let's talk about demons. So what are demons? Again, we are very creative in our 3D world, and we like to give things structure and pictures and visualization. So demons they're the ones who live in the lower consciousness. So it's a lower frequency energy. And then you have the earth plane, and then you have the upper frequency energy. Okay. And that's just, it doesn't mean that up is good and down is bad, because that's all religious programming too. It's just energy. And so we just happen to call, demons these lower frequency energies. And then we call angels, or ascended masters, and those are the higher energy beings. And we all have guides and angels, but we also have corresponding demons, corresponding, like I said, these numbers have positive and negative. So it means lower and higher energies, depending where you're at on your journey. And that's not good, right or wrong, good or bad. But we are going to pull some cards, because there are specific lower energy beings that cause interference, and they come through usually through drugs and alcohol, And so they play with your mind, and this is why you'd be like, oh my gosh, he never acted like that. It would give him a few drinks and he acts all crazy and out of control. And so that's what we talk about when we call them attachments. And it's nothing to be afraid of. They can't attach to healthy bodies. It's when the body is deteriorating that these lower energy beings or demons, satanics, whatever you want to call them, can attach to you. And so it's just about understanding where you're putting yourself because, again, we all have the power to eliminate this just by raising our frequency, by being healthy and, being of staying away from these severe toxins like heroin and severe alcohol abuse. I have given up alcohol altogether, and because it would always made me so sick. And so it is a poison, and we just have to. And I understand our culture and this. Oh, it's all fun and games, yeah, for the demons it is, but you don't need to try to make yourself feel good or to relax by that. There are other ways, but let's go ahead. And I've got some cards that are from the occult, and we are going to pull for Layne first. Um, Andromedus. Oh, I've got to look at the book because it's really important to get the names right because again, names hold a lot of power. So I actually think, we don't need to look at the numbers anymore. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can show you the cards because this is kind of the interesting part with the demons. And so we want to um so the, this one, let's see, make sure I say it correctly because once you know the demon's name, you bring it into consciousness and it has no power over you. So, and then I just heard Layne going, well, thanks. That's not helping me. Now I know all that. It's funny. He has a great sense of humor. Mike is a lot more, like I said, he's just a little bit more rough and tough and, rolling his eyes at the feminine, because that again would be so him, right? I like to see their personalities as to how he was. And he's like, oh, for God's sakes. You don't have any feminine in me, lady. Get out of here. So this is, oh, I got to look at the number on here, 72, which adds up to 9, 7 and a 2. Um, that always means something. I'm having a hard time with this book. I guess the demons are, they're showing me who's in charge right now. So, Andromalius. So that's, and it's tied to the Seven of Swords. So what energy is this? And you can see this is a very, I got to cover that up. I don't think I can have that on YouTube. A very masculine energy. And it is tied to feeling like you've stolen something that wasn't yours. And this is rejecting success. So this would be very hard on, again, this was for Layne. Very hard. Success is very hard on him. This is a very self-worth issue. And so this would give him those thoughts of who are, that somehow you cheated to get what you got, that you didn't earn it in some way. And it is tied to again, they both had sevens in their charts, and sevens are all about the sevens at a deep level can feel that there's something bad about them. And so this is him like returning things, um, returning treasures by saying I don't want it, I don't deserve it. So that was one playing for him. The other was this two of pentacles, this Aman popped out, and this is like this monkey energy, if you can kind of see that with the tail. And so this reconciles friends and enemies. So again, this clouds your judgment about who are your friends and who are your, I call them frenemies, because people, these lower energies want to bring in people that don't support you. So, and people who are giving you drugs are they are not your friends, right? People who are encouraging you to do things that aren't taking care of yourself, or you know, those are frenemies. Those are not, people that are really supporting. And you might, you could say that Layne was Mike's frenemy if they were encouraging each other to do this bad behavior. And that's all tied to their 11 twos in their chart. Twos tied to that judgment energy. So it was the two that was bringing in that energy. So the next one we have is this Phoenix. And this is kind of this, it looks kind of like a peacock. And this is so, this energy gives them this, and this is, yeah, so this would be giving Layne this ability to write poetry, but from a real struggle, a real place of despair and despondency. Um, and so that would help him with his lyrics. But again, that's also this kind of this drama, the nines, the drama king energy. And so those were just, I just wanted to pull like three each, three kind of uh, lower energy beings that were causing some interference. So this is for Mike. And so this is Vepar. And this is, looks like some type of a mermaid, some distorted feminine figure, which again is 13-4, that challenged feminine side. Vepar. I just want to make sure that's correct. Vepar, yep. So this causes a lot of storms in one's life. It is rough going, it causes a lot of turbulence. And so when Vepar is here, you're going to find this really interesting. Causes men to die in 3 days of wounds. So that's interesting that and she's holding this mirror. So it's all about reflected being. So seeing themselves and what they were doing to each other through each other. Because again, it was like, hey, look how terrible you are. And hey, you're on pills, man. What the hell are you doing? Very interesting. And that 8 is tied to the body. And so that was that neglect. So now we have Asmodeus here. And this figures, so we've got a horse here. We've got tied to the King of Wands. So this is about negative behavior. And whenever I see a horse, it's always boundaries, again, crossing boundaries, being out of control. And then it says, this makes men fly into a passionate rage and desire. So, and it destroys happiness to to people that are happy together. So they were right to push him out because he was destroying their marriage of a band. And that's, again, waste the beauty of virgins. And that's all about the innocent, wasting that energy of new, fresh ideas and getting a new sense. This one's very toxic. And this is a very, very, very tough energy. This is tied to his fives, that impulsive, um, reckless, can be very cruel behavior. So we're going to do one more for Mike because I said three each. And then we're going to go into a happier place. So this is I Me. This one I've seen come up before for people. And this is very fire energy. He was an Aries, and it's tied to that 13-4 again. And so it is needing familiar thing. And this is a lot of heat energy, and it's really a burning, just burning everything down, right? Burning yourself down, burning everything. And the Six of Pentacles is tied to giving and receiving support. And so like I said, he was carrying a lot of this guilt because Layne at one time had saved Mike. Mike had been shooting up with Kurt Cobain heroin, and then came into Layne's room after that and shot up with him without Layne knowing that he had already done that. And then he died for 11 minutes. And that 11 in both of their charts, just so you know, 11 is tied to life and death. So 11s can have near death experiences, but it's all about learning to value life, something they did not learn from those lessons. So let's pull some more positive cards and get out of some of this more lower, denser energy. So let's go to first, we're going to go to these sacred geometry activations. So here is the 11 we just talked about. 11 is tied to your beliefs. And that's again why we definitely want to always be challenging our beliefs. The frequency of belief supports our sense of self-worth based on our gifts and talents and a strong connection to source. So your beliefs are what's driving you, it's what's attracting in. So if you are having a very turbulent life, you have to look at your beliefs, and those beliefs can be set on those parental figures, like I was saying. I mean, your chart drives them. You know, we all come in as a soul family to learn and grow from each other. And but your beliefs are at the core of your manifestations. And then, of course, compassion. Mike's his whole part of his life purpose, having sevens, we talked about the group thing and bringing people together and working and not controlling them, but it's also tied to the energy of love. And I see that in the green here. It's heart, healing your heart and living through passion. That's what spirituality is. It's living your bliss. It's living what makes you happy. If that's writing song and singing songs, it's this other stuff that we've been programmed with. Oh, you have to party hard and you have to abuse your body. That's really cool, man. That's the demons. That's the lower unconscious energy. You can write music, rock music, and not be tied to that. I give credit to, I had seen Tommy Lee on very recently on an interview, and he talked about if his whole band decided that he's lucky to be alive, but the fact that his whole band decided at the same time to get clean, and he thinks that's really what saved them, was doing it together as a group. And so unfortunately, those guys, and it wasn't their path. They had other things to learn, and they've learned their lessons there, and they're really supporting their fans and everyone on the other side and their families as well. There's no hostility, there's no regret, there's none of that, because again, it's an experience. They came here, they got their experience. And so um this is about compassion is just the ability to stand by others without judgment and be the divine mediator between heaven and earth. So the compassion, learning compassion is just being able to open your heart to the world and to not judge people for where they are at because everybody is on the journey. We need to have compassion is the key. And they wished they said, showing more compassion for each other. And again, Layne remembers people commenting about, "Hey, I'm high. Isn't that cool?" And that's not what he wanted. He did not want that to be his legacy, that people looked up to him because of the drugs and that it made it okay for them to do drugs. He did not want that. That is, and so we've got a few here that came out, and one's the River Queen, and that's tied to that drama queen we were talking about. Letting go, getting in a natural environment, being good to your body. And then then the next one came up is we put ourselves in our own prisons. The prison waif, self-sabotage, poverty consciousness is tied to the fours as a self-worth issue. And then the sun dancers, joyful activity, a celebration of life and abundance. They had so much to be grateful for, so much. They miss that, with the healing process. So that was a lot. Let's see. Now, as we talked about the demons, we do have to pull a few of the keepers of the light to coincide with that energy. So let's do that. So the first one we have is open communication. We're getting a lot of this very green, compassionate energy. And purple is higher learning. Now these guys were older souls. They took when people take really challenging charts like that, they are definitely came here to learn. This is also, represents the serpent energy, which is tied to the nines and healing. So that's that medical is that healing energy, getting a weight off your chest, speak up with love and be heard. And so, they're speaking up now to say, you know, speak up to one another, communicate, bring in that's what opens the gateway, you know and then facing fears, those again looking like I'm a pussy, right? I'm pussy whipped, and all of these very toxic masculine energies that just hold you back. They don't really serve any purpose. So this is your chance. This is for the viewers facing those fears. Kali Ma is the divine feminine who will eradicate fears. So people can uh, bring her in. You can see she's a tough lady here. She's got the skeletons here, plus the flowers, burning away all of that negative demonic energy so the flowers can bloom. And then we're going to go to the elementals. Let's see what we get here. And so passion, living with passion is important, doing what you love. Um, and this is the soul. That's really, and you can see the green as well, that compassion, but living your bliss. That is what we come here to do. This isn't about finding spiritual or finding religion. Spirituality is living your passion, just so you know that it's not. I'm a recovering Catholic. But seeing things, opening clarity through the eyes. The 11 twos in their chart are directly tied to the eyes. So, and they had beautiful eyes, as that's Venus energy. And then we want to see where our gateway of light for the viewers, for the people that. So this is the heart of source, and this is what they really wanted in life. They really wanted unconditional acceptance because they felt like outsiders, and then this is the love and the acceptance, and this is tied to the heart. So opening the heart to your passions, to that spirituality, to a higher power, um, is wonderful. And you don't need anybody to connect to a higher power. You don't need a mediator. You have a direct connection. You can connect to source. Um, And so we're going to look at the shapeshifters here really quickly. That is how you become independent and free, they said, is the shape-shifting being. And this is just kind of this, I see, it's kind of these, it's a very cute kind of animated type card, but it has the feminine here, and it's talking about the stag, the masculine, and the feminine, the deer, and how blending that energy, as we had talked about earlier today, to kind of get that flow going of the yin and the yang, the yin and the yang energy. It's very beautiful. So I think we want to end with one more Keepers of the Light card. Ah, yes. So this is what they want you to know. It's all down to this is Melchizedek, and he's a ascended master. I don't know if you guys can see that. But we've got that beautiful purple energy, and this is all about higher learning. The wise old sage. You have learned from experience. More inner study is now required to further progress. So they're encouraging their viewers, people who care about them that may have been drawn to this reading, that to do more learning, to further your education, because projecting yourself onto famous people as well, I would like to talk just a moment about that, is you kind of giving your power to them. And it's okay to admire people, but you want to learn something from them. It's not just like, that's my guy. And you start identifying with that person. And then if somebody's like, oh, I like Van Halen, and then you get all mad because you're so over identified with it because you've lost your identity to them. They want you to do your passion and learn your passion, learn from their mistakes, learn from their successes as well. And so I will leave you with that. I appreciate those guys coming in and helping me with this video with the energies. And I think it was really great that they're still doing their work on the other side, helping others and, coming through as anybody who's willing to listen. Because who am I? I don't know why they're coming through to me, but I just had to share it with you, and I appreciate you being here, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.